All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Hot Cakes and Hot Takes. I'm AJ, and below me to the right, this way, is Bully.
What's going on, boys? AJ, that is an ugly jersey.
My Hot Cake shirt's in the wash, so I just figured get my next best shirt on. Jeff Wilson Jr. jersey. It's gonna be one of the greats. Just you wait.
He already was one of the greats the way you talk about him.
And on my left is Zeke.
Hi.
And we are here. We're going to do a little playoff preview. We're going to dive deeper into the matchups that are coming up this weekend. So we'll just hop right in order. We'll get going with the first game. And instead of the Texans, we get the Colts and the Bills. So right off the bat, the 2 versus 7 seed Colts and Bills. I think Bills are coming in at 12-4 or 13-3. And we have the Colts getting in at 11-5. So right off the bat, boys, what were your initial impressions of this matchup?
I mean, for me, I think this is actually going to be one of the better games of the weekend. I was kind of, timid with picking the Colts during the year, and they just kept proving me wrong. I think I picked them one time and to beat the Titans on the Thursday night, and I got lucky on that one and a nice second half comeback. But overall, we kind of been talking about them how this team will only go as far as Phillip Rivers takes them, and as long as he takes care of the football, they should be okay. And he's proved to have been able to do that for most of the year. So I don't really expect that to change a whole lot. The Bills defense, maybe getting a little bit better down the stretch here, but overall haven't been as great as some might have thought going into the season. So this is definitely going to be one of the better games for me to watch this weekend.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good matchup just because it's really two different styles, at least in the strengths of these teams. I mean, if you look at the Bills, we know what they are. They're an aerial attack with Josh Allen. Their running game, pretty questionable. Nobody really has stepped up consistently in that backfield, and their defense has been a little bit shaky. They're rather inconsistent as well, but they've been led by Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. And then on the other side, Phil is going to be Phil. He's come along nicely in the second half of the season, but we saw what he did in the first half. And now Jonathan Taylor is emerging, and they've got kind of a running attack going, and their defense has been really strong, causing turnovers all season long. And that's probably the one thing to look out for is if Josh Allen has had a flaw in the past, it's taking care of the football. And this is one of the best turnover-forcing defenses in the league. So I think that's a big thing to look out for.
Yeah, no, it's good points. And so we'll just start in. We'll get diving in first. We'll go through the Bills offense. We're going to do position by position, or position group, So we'll compare the offensive line versus the defensive line and see who we think has the advantage there. Then go running backs and linebackers, and then eventually go to receivers and secondary and just try to get into the finer details of each position battle that's going to happen and who we're going to give the advantage to going forward. So we'll start with the Bills on offense, and we'll have this nice little graphic here. Took me forever to make these, so sorry that I had to rush a little bit. Try to give you some stats about each offense first, and so we're going with the Bills O-line. And the ratings too. Don't trust the ratings. I got these from lineups.com, so a lot of these are going to be very wrong, but I kind of wanted to help to see where they thought beginning of the season, where they rated amongst other linemen. So I think that's where they were, because right now they have Antonio Brown is the number 1 wide receiver in the league, and Des Bryant is the number 8 wide receiver in the league, which I think is a little high for them. So you'll see some.
That's got to be based on last week, because AB went off and Des had a touchdown.
Des had 3 catches for 59 yards. Top 10 receiver. What is that? Chris Sims doing those rankings or what?
There he goes. There you go. I'm surprised Cortland Sutton's still not up there yet.
So, but
didn't hurt his team this weekend. So,
but just to keep an eye out when you see these ratings and something might look a little off. I just want to give you a heads up ahead of time. But first, we'll start with the Bills' offensive line. Starting with Deion Dawkins. They have I'm gonna butcher all of these names, so you guys can just read them on your own. This should be their projected starting lineup for the offensive line of the Bills team, which they led the league in first down, second in points per game. I think right behind the Green Bay Packers. And the surprising thing is their defense gave up 20, or their offensive line has allowed 27 sacks, which is 9th fewest in the NFL. So they keep Josh Allen upright. I don't know if that's more their line doing the work or, Josh Allen's mobility, but, their offensive line is pretty solid here. And they're going up against the Colts D-line, which they allowed 90.5 rushing yards per game, which is second fewest in the NFL. And they also get to the quarterback. So maybe they're known for their, passing defense, but right here in the O-lines and versus D-line, we got a pretty good battle up front already to start off. So what do you guys feel about this one?
I mean, I think the advantage in this one does go to the Colts. I mean, they have DeForest Buckner. Justin Houston's had a good year. Grover Stewart's been playing well as well. So and obviously, like you have so nicely put out there for us that they do have, or did have 40 sacks on the season, which upper half of the league. And, they may not get to the quarterback enough to get more sacks, but I think they still get a lot of pressure on the quarterback, and that does help their secondary make more plays and become more opportunistic when a quarterback's under duress and has to throw the ball maybe a little faster than they want to. So I think that's kind of where their strong suit is. I mean, their corners obviously are still solid players, but I don't think that they are as good as they appear to be based on their numbers. And I think that definitely starts with their defensive front there. And the Bills' offensive line, I do think that it is a product of the system that they kind of play in there. I think Josh Allen's in the shotgun, almost half the time, I feel, because they're throwing it all the time. So, he's already kind of back, gives them a little bit more time to protect, and he does have a good scramble ability. So even if they do kind of falter, he can make plays and keep their sack numbers low. So a little misleading, but I definitely think the Colts have the advantage here.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, the numbers pretty much speak for themselves. And I talked a little bit about the Bills' running game kind of struggling this year. I think a lot of that probably has to do with the offensive line just not getting a great push up front. And we've seen the Colts, number 2 in the league right now in run defense. And it's pretty clear to me that the Colts are going to have the advantage up front.
Yeah, all right. I agree with you guys there. We can move on to the next matchup now. Just comparing the Bills running backs to the Colts linebackers. Obviously, Devin Singletary is probably going to be the workhorse. Zach Moss will get some touches in there as well. And then on the Colts side, you got Darius Leonard, one of the premier linebackers in the league. And as you can see, Bully already said, they allowed 3.7 yards per carry, second fewest in the NFL. So the run defense is solid. And also looking at total yards, I just kind of combined the linebackers there into that. They gave up 332 yards per game, which is 8th fewest in the NFL. So their defense does a good job of limiting yards. And yeah, on the other side, looking at the Bills running game, and they average 107 yards on the ground per game, which is 28th in the NFL. When you got that dynamic of passing attack, you don't really rely on the run, but come playoff time, you might need to switch more to the run game. So you guys like in this matchup?
I think, again, this one probably is going to go to the Colts. I mean, they have, Darius Leonard, an all-pro player. And it just, kind of like Bully mentioned before, there's, probably, in part due to the lack of efficiency from their offensive line. And I know they've had some issues. I think Zach Moss is out for, a good portion of the first half of the year. So didn't have a lot of opportunities, but they just don't put up a ton of yards. They're not super effective on the ground, which is okay for them. They just got to run the ball to keep, the defense honest at least, so they don't just drop back and, drop into coverage and try to prevent Josh Allen from doing his thing. So at this point, you just have to give it to the Colts. They, just even if it's not for their, talent, it's for the lack of, production from the Bills running backs.
Yeah, and they don't really seem to have an identity. Like at the start of the year, all of training camp, you heard, all right, Zach Moss it's sounding like he's going to be the guy. And then all of a sudden they come out and Singletary's a guy and Zach Moss is just their goal line back. Then all of a sudden Zach Moss was getting a bunch of carries. And then it seemed like, and this is probably when Moss was out, but all of a sudden Singletary was getting 18 carries a game. And I'm just like, I have no idea what they're doing. And it didn't matter which one it was. Like none of them seemed to be very effective.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think I left out one main person in that picture. I should have included Josh Allen in that grouping of running backs because he probably does get a lot of rushing yards. I just thought of that now. I was like, yeah, he probably gets most of their rushing yards anyways. But I guess, yeah, I would agree with you. I think the front seven for the Colts will do a fine job of, shutting down the run game for the Bills. I kind of like the front seven that they have. Darius Leonard in particular, he's a great linebacker. But we can move on to probably the in my opinion, the best matchup of the day is we got the Bills receiving core versus the Colts secondary. I added Josh Allen here since he's obviously the guy throwing the ball. We got, Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley leading the way. I think Stephon Diggs led the league in receptions this year. And on the Colts side, you got Rocky Ya-Sin, Xavier Rhodes having a nice bounce back year. It's a bummer they lost their free safety at the beginning of the season. I'm blanking on his name, but that's a big loss. But their secondary still is fitting pretty nice. 241.6 yards per game, which is actually the 13th most in the NFL. But they had to fit in some pieces together. But this is probably where I think the Bills would have the advantage. But I'll pass it over and let you guys talk about it for a bit.
Well, first off, I just want to mention how great of a name is Rocky Ya-Sin. I mean, that is fantastic. But yeah, I would agree. I mean, when you have Stephon Diggs on the other side, I mean, how many catches did he have this year? About 120.
Yep, too many.
That it's hard not to give the edge to there, and really Cole Beasley as well. He has really emerged as kind of that number 2 guy in that offense. We've seen him in the past in Dallas. He was a pretty good slot guy. He went to Buffalo, and last year didn't really seem like he ever really got kind of acclimated with the system. But this year he's taken off, especially at the second half of the year. And they've got a lot of weapons to spread it around to. I mean, even Dawson Knox is a pretty good option at the tight end position. So, and then obviously we're going to talk about Josh Allen, but pretty good guy throwing the football right now.
Yeah, and I think, AJ, you were thinking of Malik Hooker.
Yes.
I believe he was the one that got hurt. He's kind of been injury prone, and I don't want to say that it's maybe better for their secondary, but he just hasn't. I think his rookie year he got hurt for most of the season, and last year was maybe a little bit under par from what he'd started off as. Playing pretty well for him, but I mean, this is a unit for the Colts that like I said, Xavier Rhodes has certainly bounced back. He not quite the all-pro form that he was when he was with the Vikings, but like I said, it's very opportunistic, and the defense is, it's a true defense. There's nothing really outstanding for this defense as a whole. We talked about DeForest Buckner and we talked about Darius Leonard, and those are their 2 stars. But other than that, there's nobody that's really, really out there outstanding. So, as a cohesive unit, definitely a great unit. But like Boley was mentioning, they got so many weapons on the Bills side of the ball on offense that I have to give them the edge too. I think as we'll probably get over when we start talking about the Colts offense, this is going to be a game where the Colts are going to have to control the football and keep their defense fresh, because they're going to have to get after the quarterback. Otherwise, I can see the Bills putting up quite a bit of points in this one.
Yeah, I would agree. And, it's pretty funny. Stephon Diggs is going to be on Xavier Rhodes, 2 of 4. I think they were teammates at one time in Minnesota, and now they're playing against each other, not from Minnesota. So, just a little fun battle there.
Oh, good. Just really wanted to make sure that we knew that Minnesota was not playing in the playoffs this year, for anybody that was not aware.
just throwing that out there. But we can move on. We'll give our predictions at the end of this episode. So we'll move on now with the Colts on the offensive side of the ball and the Bills defense. We'll start with the O-line for the Colts versus the Bills defense. The Colts O-line obviously led by Quentin Nelson, probably one of the best guards, if not the best guard in the game right now. And, their offensive line, is having a heck of a year so far. But then you look at the Bills D-line on the side of the ball. Ed Oliver's having a good year. Jerry Hughes, I threw him in there because he's mostly a rushing you guy that rushes the passer. But, looking at this, you get 21 sacks allowed all season for this Colts offensive line, which is second fewest in the NFL. So they've done a great job keeping Phil upright. And, looking at on the other side of the ball, the Bills D-line, they gave up 4.6 yards per carry, which is 7th most in the NFL. So they do get gashed by the run game a little bit. So right off the bat, who are you giving the advantage to in this one?
This
one.
Well,
that's like I said when we.
Oh, go ahead, Bully. I was waiting for you, and you didn't. Go ahead.
I jumped you last time, so I figured I'd give you a shot to regain your crown here. But nope, I'll take it. That's fine.
Go ahead. All you.
I was just gonna say that right side of the line for the Colts. or I don't know if it's the right or the left, the way it's lined up on my screen here. I think it's actually the left side. But Quentin Nelson and Anthony Costanzo, I mean, that is such a great pair, and it's really no surprise we're seeing the numbers that they're having this season. And on the other side of the ball, I mean, I kind of talked a lot, and when we kind of went over it briefly, is these two teams kind of have really different styles, and that's really no surprise that we're getting all these matchups that are pretty easy to say who has the edge in.
Yeah, it's basically what I was going to say, and I think the Colts offensive line as a unit, I don't think has changed all year, which is certainly something that can't be overstated. Having the continuity as an offensive line to, have the same guys with you the entire year. There's no miscommunication. You've done it for 16 games. Everything will be crisp because they've done it, and they've done it with each other. So that's a huge plus for the Colts. And, like I said, the Bills, we thought they would be better because they have guys like Ed Oliver and Jerry Hughes and Mario Addison, all guys that have shown in the past that they can be really good. But yeah, like you showed those numbers, it's just not the case this year. And that is going to play perfectly into what the Colts are going to want to do. They're going to want to run the ball and, control the clock. And, their offensive line is tailored for it and the defensive line is not. So it could be a big day for Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines.
Tailored for it. Nice one.
Yeah, it wasn't meant to be, but I still like the puns regardless.
So, all right, we can move on then since, brought up. I hit the wrong one. Sorry. Oh, man. One sec. I have to update this image real quick. I added the Bills running backs instead of the Colts.
You sure did.
They even have this. Oh, nice. That's all right. There's going to be mistakes eventually. Colts.
We never maintained to be a perfect podcast.
No,
we just did.
By no means are we perfect.
Far from it.
There we go.
I like this live action change though. I see it,
I wonder if I.
Oh, there it is.
I didn't do that
and
wrong.
Just so you know, you do also have the Colts linebackers up there. So
I know.
That
Yeah.
Know if you knew that.
I saw that after the fact.
And for anybody that may be watching on Twitch right now, AJ it still says Bills running backs and Colts linebackers, but just flip those.
And if you're like a majority of our audience who listens on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you're just screwed right now and you're confused what the hell's going on.
Well, hey, maybe this is the good time. We're making YouTube videos. If you want to go watch us on YouTube. If you don't have
our live action blooper reel that we're not cutting by any means.
Here we go.
There he goes.
Running back in the Bills linebackers, Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines, Jordan Wilkins, obviously 124.8 yards in the game, which is 10th in the NFL, and they have 20 rushing touchdowns. This is 6th in the NFL. And then, you look at the other side of the ball, the Bills are allowing 119 yards on the ground, which is, in the bottom half, barely 17th in the NFL. But the interesting thing about their defense is that their opponent time of possession is only 47%. So the Bills really control the ball, and I think their defense is a big reason why. They get their opponent off the field, or, it's both because their offense, stays on the field forever and scores touchdowns. But so I just thought I want to throw that stat in there. But here you're looking at the running backs versus the Colts the Bills linebackers versus the Colts running backs. Who are you guys giving the advantage to in this one?
I mean, kind of like Bully said, they're different play styles. So I'm going to probably have to give it to the Colts running backs here. Tremaine Edmonds is a good linebacker. He's certainly the best of their group there. But it's just the fact that, again, this is more or less a play style thing. I don't think in terms of skill, like the Colts running backs are much better than the Bills linebackers. But, just the way that they play, this is going to lend the advantage to the Colts running backs. They, run downhill, and the linebackers just obviously haven't gotten it done. And I was going to say the time of possession is maybe just because they get scored on very quickly and they don't need to have the ball a lot. But
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, and then they, the offense just controls the ball. So, but yeah, like I said, Jonathan Taylor has come on very well as of late. So as long as he continues the form that he showed last week, they definitely should take advantage of this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking strictly personnel-wise, like I might even give the edge to the Bills. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Tremaine Edmonds. Got to give a shout out to AJ Klein, the local product. I think he's from Appleton, Wisconsin. So that's cool. He had a nice little start with the Saints, and now he's playing okay for the Bills. Not great, but he's getting the job done. But yeah, on the other side, the Colts just have a lot of options, you know. And Jordan Wilkins really came on this year. He was a good receiving threat, and Nyheim Hines has always been a great receiving threat for them. And the way that Taylor's been playing the last few weeks, you got to give the edge to them. And it's mostly just because of scheme, like Baczynski said, but it's hard not to when you look at the numbers. But Jonathan Taylor, I mean, for a lot of the year, he was only averaging around 4 yards per carry. They couldn't really get him going, but wow, has he come alive in the last few weeks? And I think he's averaging now 5 on the season, which to get to that point to where he was for most of the year, you can tell he had a couple of huge weeks.
Yeah, at the beginning of the season, people were calling him like, oh, he's like going to get benched for Himes, and he's just really turned it on as of late. And I think he really got his start after that Packer game is when he really got going. He found his groove halfway through there and then just kind of ran the rest of the way. Got him to the playoffs. But yeah, no, I like Jonathan Taylor here in that offensive line for the Colts. I'll give them the edge. And I'm guaranteeing you I have this one wrong. Yep, sure do. So hang on, I just got to switch this one again.
Yep, sure do, he says.
I had right when I saw it, I'm like, I'm pretty sure I don't remember ever putting the Colts receivers on there. So
there you go.
There it is. And then I need
maybe
the
not
Bills.
much to talk about.
Maybe that's true. Yeah, it's exactly. How do I spell? There we go. But you got to get the Bills secondary and to give them some love. They got some great players over there, and so yep, we got T.Y. Hilton, Zach Pascal, Michael Pittman, and I added there 3 tight ends because Phil likes throwing to the tight ends. But when you're looking at them, they actually throw the ball quite a bit. They have 253 yards per game. That's 11th in the NFL, so almost top 10 for a passing offense. And then if you're looking on the other side of the ball, Tre'Davious White, in my opinion, one of the top 5 cornerback in the league. Jordan Poyer is actually playing safety for him, and he's having a heck of a year. And, there's always Micah Hyde, and they even have Josh Norman. He's kind of finding a little resurgence there for the Bills. And that Bills defense is pretty good. They get picks and they harass the quarterback. And so who do you guys like in this one?
Well, I think at this stage, you got to give it to the Bills. I think a lot on experience. I mean, Micah Hyde has been a really, really good safety. And I don't even really call him a safety. He's just such a hybrid. He can really do whatever you ask of him. But he's very opportunistic. It makes a lot of plays. And I think getting him in free agency from the Packers a couple of years ago was a huge boost for him. But obviously Jordan Poyer, the other safety there, he's outstanding. I think he's had a few Pro Bowl seasons, might have been an All-Pro. But Tre'Davious White and Josh Norman have both been All-Pros. So, just tremendous talent in their secondary for sure. And when you look at it for the Colts, I mean, T.Y. Hilton's certainly the old vet in that group, and he's come. He's done a lot better late in the season. He was hurt for a lot of the season in the beginning of the year. But it's just Michael Pittman's a rookie, and he's shown flashes that he can do a few things, but nothing stands out to me. And the tight ends do get a lot of work, and I think that is indicative of Phil kind of not being as gunslinger as he used to be back in the day. So just based on that, I got to give the advantage to the Bills.
Yeah, pretty much took the words out of my mouth. It's just experience versus young, raw talent for the most part for the Colts. And I'm a big fan of Michael Pittman Jr. I think he is going to be really good within the next few years. They draft a guy like Paris Campbell last year, and we're talking about him all last year. Like, come on, when's he going to show up? And now all of a sudden, like, you haven't even heard from him in 2 years. Michael Pittman Jr. doesn't matter. They draft another guy this year, and he's actually stepping up, having a nice rookie season. And I got to ask you guys something. So, Mo Alley Cox, do you think he kept the Alley in the name just so his name wouldn't be Mo Cox?
Yeah, definitely.
I've been sitting on this take all season. I had to get it off my chest.
Hey, I'll be honest, though. That would be so much better, though, if you got a fan in the stands with a sign that says, "I want Mo Cox." Like, come on.
Fantastic.
Right. You should just drop it for that sake only.
Damn, there we go. Now we have to mark our videos as mature. Good one.
Gotta drop that NSFW tag on there. We'll be fine.
All right. Well, that'll do it for all the matchups. So here we go. The big prediction. Who wants to go first? Taking the Bills or the Colts?
I mean, I'll go first. Are we going to give scores or are we just picking the winner?
Sure, give scores.
Scores. Okay. I'm going to go with the Bills, but I do think it'll be, maybe 24 to 16, 24 to 17, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, the score is probably the hardest part. I'm definitely going with the Bills. I just think that the way their offense is playing right now, it's gonna be enough to make up for whatever flaws that they have on the defensive side of the ball. I do think it is going to be probably fairly high scoring. I mean, I would say maybe like a 31-23, something like that.
Okay, so I got 24-16 or something like that, and 31-23, something like that. Okay.
Something like that. Hey, we'll play.
I'll take the Bills
Take
in
5
this one,
points.
too. I think it's actually going to be it's going to come down to the wire. I think the Colts are going to put up a lot of points. I think Taylor's going to have a monster day. I'm going to go 34-31 Bills. Make sure, everyone listening, you comment below on who you think you guys got in this one and give us a score prediction as well. And make sure you follow along because we'll be dropping more videos as we preview more games in the playoffs. So until then, see you next time.